Hey, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you guys are on, and we will get started for today. I pray that everybody is having an amazing Thursday. We are one step closer to Friday. I don't know about y'all, but this week has been something else. But you know what? Sometimes God has to allow life to stretch us a little bit. And it's never comfortable. It's never what we want. It's never something we would choose, but it oftentimes makes us better for it. Last week we talked, you guys, we were talking about just not settling. You know, a lot of times we settle for less because that's easy. A lot of times we settle for less because we don't want to put the effort in, or we don't think that we deserve it, or that we qualify, or that we have what it takes. But you will have what you say. You have to be careful about how you talk about yourself, how you think about yourself, you know, and just the way you feel about yourself. You know, we all know we have limitations. We know we're human. Nobody's Superman or Superwoman, but you have to believe in yourself when nobody else does. And you have to believe that you deserve the best of everything. And until you believe that, you will always settle for less than what you deserve. But that was what our topic was last week. I hope you guys got something out of that. I was excited about that topic because I saw myself. And I saw how many times I settled, you know, for less than, or settled for what was easy, or settled for, you know, what everybody else wanted me to do. And so that was kind of my chance to kind of come clean about, you know, some things even I've done, you know, and how I lowered the bar, you know, just to fit in sometimes, just to be in a relationship, just to have what everybody else had. But life is about learning. Life is about growing. Life is about just taking those lessons from the past and applying them to your life, so you don't have to keep going over the same stuff over and over again. And I'm going to go ahead and get started because you guys know I like to be on time, and I really like to not take up too much of your time, because we all have busy lives. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. You know, we are all working, most of us. Some of us, if you're not working, you're stay-at-home mom, you're a stay-at-home wife. That's work too. You know, it's so much to do. It never gets done in a day. So therefore, I'm not going to hold you guys long. This topic, I was listening to a pastor, and he made this statement about how sometimes in life, God will disrupt your plans. God will turn your table over. You know, when you think you got everything going on the way you want it to go, sometimes your plan is not God's plan. And this is what we want to talk about today. Hey, Miss Anita. We want to talk about today what happens when he knocks it over. You know, sometimes God is doing things that we don't understand because his mind is not like ours. He knows the end from the beginning. He is infinite. He knows all and sees all. And we have limited information, and we have limited experiences. So sometimes we don't always understand, you know, when God knocks our plans over, or knocks our table over after we got it just the way we wanted it. So many times, you know, we look back with regret when we think about all the things that didn't work out the way we planned for them to work out. But a lot of times that was God's hand on your life, God's protection on your life, God trying to redirect you, God chastising you sometimes, you know, because we get out of line. You know, we get caught up in what the world's got going on. We want to do what everybody else is doing. But as a child of God, we are not supposed to conform to that. Hey, Rita, you know, we're supposed to do our best to keep ourselves clean, our spirit clean, keep our minds clean, because somebody's going to need us to show them the way to God. So what if you consider that the things that didn't work out, it wasn't because God hated you or God has anything against you, just because what you were doing at that time, maybe in that season, maybe you were out of place, maybe you were jumping ahead of God, and God's plan for your life at that time was not that. And sometimes we have to really sit back and think about it. Was I really ready for what I was trying to do? Because a lot of times we're not as grown up as we think, and we find out when we get into stuff just how grown we really are. We tell our kids that, those of us that have raised children and got them grown, praise God, a lot of times they think they want to be out there so bad. Hey, Wendy, until they get out there and then they call in mama, this is happening, that's happening. I got to pay bills. I got to go to the store. They raised the rent, blah, blah, blah. They thought they was ready for that. So sometimes we think we're ready for something and God knows that we're not. So he'll have to knock it over before you get ahead of yourself and make a mess out of it. The failure is part of God's plan, you guys. Every time I think back over my own life, things that did not work out that I thought should have worked out. Now that I'm older, now that my relationship is better with Christ, I understand now I was not ready for 90% of the stuff I was trying to do. I was either trying to fit in, or I was trying to make myself feel better about myself, or I was trying to do things for the wrong reason. And a lot of times we'll move too fast without God's direction, and God has to knock that thing over, because allowing you to do something that you're not prepared for is going to hurt you more than knocking it over before you get to it. And same thing with children. As we're raising them, we know what's best for them. And we know that we have to stop little Johnny, because if we let little Johnny do whatever he wants, he's going to get hurt. It's going to cause damage. It's going to cause destruction. And sometimes those things that we get ourselves into leave a permanent effect on our lives. Some things that you get yourself in, you can't get yourself out of. And a lot of people are sitting behind bars or sitting in situations wishing that they had just taken another minute and gave that thing a second thought before they acted on it. So understand, even the failure is part of God's plan. Why I say that? Because God has a plan to grow you up. He wants you to be a mature Christian. The reason I know that is because he has scriptures in the Bible. And this one in particular says, when I was a child, I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. That's what God expects from us. But on that other flip side of that, he also expects us to come to him as little children. But when it comes to handling things of this world, he wants you to grow up. But when it comes to coming to your Father God, he wants you to come as little children. That's the mind of God. That's the thing that we don't understand, that he wants us to be children on this hand, but then he wants us, hey, Kinsley, to grow up and put away childish things on this other hand. That's for the world's purpose, because he knows that if you stay in a childish mindset here on this earth, you'll never prosper. If you stay in a childish mindset here on this earth, thinking you can be spoiled and you can have everything you want, you're not only going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt other people. And that's why he wants you to mature in Christ. You should not stay the same as you started. So the failures in life, number one, is to grow you up and to get you into shape. You don't get shaped up, you don't get stronger unless you flex your muscle. And a lot of times when you fail, it makes you get up and makes you try again. It makes you have that tenacity that you didn't know that you had. It makes you have that drive that you don't even know where it came from. God has a way of doing things to grow you up and to shape you up. Number two, reason why he allows the failure, and it's part of his plan, is to strengthen you. Because once you're strong, when you see somebody else that's going through that same thing you've gone through that same pain you've gone through that same heartache, if you were still weak, you couldn't help them. So God has to allow the failure to make you stronger, because somebody's going to come along that's going to need you to be the strong person. They're going to need you to be the shoulder to cry on. They're going to need you to be that person that they can look up to for guidance. Just today, you guys, as I was working, you just never know how things are going to happen. But one of the other nurses, she came to me, and she had just come out of a meeting, and I was coming down the hallway going to the break room. She came out of the meeting. She didn't say nothing to me. All she did was come over to me, and she just laid her head on my shoulder. She never said a word. I never said a word. But it was understood that I was that strength that she was looking for in that moment. Because she just had her head down and she laid it on my shoulder. And I didn't even ask her what it was about. But see, had I been weak, had I been caught up in my own stuff, or had I been in the wrong type of mindset, I'd have pushed off and said, girl, what are you doing? But because I had the love of Christ in me, because I understood that sometimes you have to be other people's strength. I saw it in her eyes when she came out of the meeting. I had no idea she was going to come up and just lay her head on my shoulder. But I was what she needed at that moment, and she walked away smiling. We never said a word to each other. But sometimes that's all you need to be, is just be that strength that somebody's looking for. So that's why God allows you to fail, because you can be compassionate when you've had some failures. Now, if you've never failed at anything, you're going to be critical. You're going to be all thinking that you got it going on, that you can't understand how anybody else couldn't do what you just did, but when God allows you to fail, it humbles you. It allows you to have compassion for other people, because you know what it's like to be hurt. You know what it's like to be disappointed. So therefore, God allows failure in your life to strengthen you, because you never know who's going to need your strength. Number 3, He allows it to change your mind, to change your way of thinking. There's nothing like thinking you know everything to find out you didn't know nothing, to change your mindset. If you're smart, it'll change your mindset. Now, if you want to be stubborn and still think you know everything, then you got more trouble coming your way. But for that person that thought they had all the answers, and then they end up with a big disappointment, it humbles you. It helps you understand, you know what? I'm going to start listening a little bit more. They tried to tell me not to do that this way, and I just wanted to do it my way. I need to really work on that. Sometimes God needs you to see you in the situation. That's why He lets you fail, because we're good at pointing out everybody else's failures, where everybody else, needs to step up their game, this, that, and the other. But it's often hard for us to really see ourselves. So sometimes God have to let you stumble and let you fall sometime, because we get to the point where, because we've done something for so long, because we are proficient in something, we feel like we don't have to listen to anybody. So God has a way of putting that failure in your life and knocking your little table over, to where you have to get down and pick your stuff up and look up at other people and say, you know what could I have done, to have kept this from happening. Number 4, the failure is to teach you to turn to God. There's nothing like having your heart set on something, putting all your energy into something, putting all your heart, all your love, all your compassion into something, and seeing it fail. Everything you're doing, and you're seeing that you're not making any progress, you're not getting the outcome. God teaches you to turn to Him, because a lot of times when you're counting on other people, they're not going to be there for you. Sometimes people are just jealous. They like the sound of you doing something. But when you really start to do it, that's when you find out that a lot of people really aren't for you once they see you making progress and doing what you need to do. So God is trying to teach you to turn to Him by allowing things to fail, because number 1, most of the time we don't go to Him before we try stuff anyway. We don't go to Him before we make those big decisions. And so God is trying to teach us to turn to Him for guidance, not just run out there and do stuff, just because it's popular, or just because somebody said, oh girl, you should do that. God is trying to teach us by our failures to remember the last time you got your tail out there and tried to do that without consulting me, without talking to me and seeing if that was the right thing for you to do. You're destined to go through that mess again because you jumped out there. Remember that relationship? You didn't pray about that guy before you got in that relationship, and then he let you down and broke your heart, and then you ended up having to come back anyway. So understand, the failure is supposed to teach you to do things different next time. This time, I'm going to pray about it. This time, before I get serious about somebody, men and women, before you get serious about somebody, pray about that person. Ask God to show you what you need to know about that person. Show you those hidden things. Everybody shows you their best self, when they're trying to get you or trying to keep you interested in them. So you have to ask God to give you the discernment and not have you paranoid because of what's happened in your past, because sometimes we will put that off on other people, which is not their fault, and that's not right. So you need to turn to God first before you make those big decisions. And there's nothing like failing because you tried to do it your way to get your mind right and let you know that there's a better way to do things. Number 5, sometimes the plan for the failure is to break you. When you're high and mighty, like I said before, nobody can talk to you. You won't accept anybody's input. You don't have time to listen to anybody's wisdom. God is trying to send people your way to help you, and you're turning everybody away because you want to get all the glory. Well, God will break you. He will allow the failure to break you so that he can make you over again, so that he can pull some of that pride out of you, pull some of that arrogance. That's the word I was looking for. Pull some of that arrogance out of you, because when you're arrogant, you're not drawing people to you, and you're just making people want to stay away from you because you're making them feel like they're less than, that they don't deserve to be in your company. And God doesn't like that, because if Jesus could sit around sinners and prostitutes and thieves, and didn't treat them like they were less than, who are we, to try to act like just because we've made it, or just because we make a certain amount of money, live in a certain type of house, drive a certain type of car, how dare we treat other people as though they are less than? If Jesus didn't do it, we don't have a right to do it. And that's just my little soapbox, y'all. And so sometimes God will allow the failure to break you and humble you and remind you that you need him. The next thing the failure is supposed to do, number 6, to get your attention. Sometimes we can get so caught up in our goals and trying to make money and trying to live like the Joneses. We got tunnel vision, and we forget about God. We forget about the things that are important, like your health, your family, those things. We're forgetting about those things. So sometimes God has to let things fail to get your attention, because you're missing out on the blessings of life. Money's great, you guys. God knows we need it. God knows it buys a lot of things. But the most important things in your life, your peace, that love, that true love of your life, all of that stuff, money is not going to be able to pay for. Just being able to sit out and look at a sunset or sit on a lake, that doesn't cost you any money. But those are some of the most beautiful things in the world, and some of the most fulfilling things in the world, that money doesn't buy. So we have to make sure that we make the money, but we don't let the money make us. Don't turn into a money-making machine, because you're no longer a person when you're like that. You can't serve two masters. You can't spend all your time trying to make money and then have time for your family, have time for your friends, have time for God. You have to decide what's most important to you. And so a lot of times God has to let whatever you got going on, that little table you got set up, you think is perfect, pristine, he'll go over and knock it over. He'd be like, all right, I got your attention now. I'm trying to show you something. You're about to lose something. You're about to lose somebody. You're missing something because you're focused on the wrong things. Hey, Miss Christelle. So a lot of times God allows the failures in our life just to get our attention. He may want you to spend more time with him. He may be saying, you know what? Something beautiful is happening and you're way over here. You're missing out because you think this thing is more important in your life. So I'm going to knock that out of the way so that you can pay attention to what's more important. And it reminds me of the story, you guys learned this story about how when Jesus was coming through and he was coming over to Lazarus' sister's house, Mary and Martha, and how one of the sisters, I can't remember if it was Mary or Martha, either way, one was getting things prepared and she was cooking and doing all of this, blah, blah, blah. Jesus gets there and the other sister is sitting at his feet. And so I want to say it was Martha that was doing all the fuss, and she came back, to Jesus and said, she's not helping me. I'm paraphrasing. She's not helping me. I'm doing all this work and she's just sitting in here at your feet listening to you, blah, 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 blah. And Jesus broke that down. She was doing the most important thing. She's doing the thing that's going to impact her life. She's doing the thing that is going to mean the most. You can leave all that other. Jesus didn't care about all that preparation that you were doing. He wanted to share God's word while he was on the earth. And Mary recognized that he wasn't going to be with them always. While Martha was worried about, making sure everything was straight, everything was good, and worrying about who wasn't helping her. Sometimes we miss out on the best part of things because we're busy doing too much other stuff. Mary recognized that this guy is in my house. This is not always going to happen. This is a once in a lifetime chance. I'm going to sit down and hear what he's got to say because I may never see him again. So basically, you have to understand that just because you think it's important, it may not be important to God. So sometimes God has to knock your table over in order, or knock your plans over in order to get your attention. Number 7, the reason the failure comes is to discipline us. God is always trying to steer us in the right direction. And I'm guiltier than anybody that's watching. Sometimes when we want what we want, doggone well you hear from God. Doggone well you see those red flags. Doggone well you feel things in the pit of your stomach. You feel the hair standing up on the back of your back. I'm telling you, it's amazing how, that's why the Bible says the heart is deceitful. Because it will lead you astray, because that's what you want so bad, and God will steadily be trying to warn you. He'll be showing you stuff, putting it right up in your face. And if that's what you really desire, then you're going to ignore him. And so sometimes God has to let you get in the fire and let you get burned and discipline you and let you know, hey, I was trying to stop you. Hey, you didn't want to hear from me. You didn't want to take my advice. So I'm taking my hands off and I'm getting out of the way. So sometimes he has to let us get that whipping that we deserve for being hard-headed and for being disobedient. So sometimes the failures in our life come to discipline us because God was trying to stop us from doing some things, but we decided it was more important what we wanted to do. Just like children. Number 8, another reason the failure comes is to bless us. You don't think about a failure being a blessing, but you guys, my personal note, I think about relationships that didn't work out in my life, and I cried, and especially when I was young, I cried. I thought it was the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. But I see those people now, and I see what they've taken their spouses through. I see, just how they haven't taken care of themselves. I see how they're still as childish as they used to be and silly as they used to be. And I thank God every day for all those relationships that did not work out, because none of that was for me. That was something I desired. That wasn't something God wanted for me. So that's how God blesses us, because he'll let you see later why his answer was no. He'll let you see later why his answer was hold up, not right now. And then he'll let you see why his answer is just flat out no. Simply because as you get older, if you choose to learn about God, if you choose to discipline yourself, God will show you why he had to say no. back then so that you could be the person that you are right now. So I thank God so much because, some of them even try to reach out to me and I'm like, I can't do nothing but be your friend. I'm not going backwards. I'm not going through that. I already know what's happened in your life. I don't want any part of that. So you have to thank God. And I thank God, just for some moves that I didn't make. I thought I wanted to move to the city. And I thank God every day that I didn't move to a big city because that's just not who I am. I like to visit big cities, but I like quiet. I like peace. I like knowing who my neighbors are. I like being able to walk in my neighborhood and not worry about, being mugged or being hurt, And like I say, you can get hurt anywhere, but seems like in the city, it's more of an opportunity for those things to happen. And I don't even like traffic like that, you guys. And so I thank God that I didn't take that on because that was not something that was supposed to be a part of my life at that time. So God blesses us, just to see why his answer was no. And then number 9, sometimes God allows us to fail because you're going the wrong way. You're chasing after something that's going to hurt you later on. And so God has to let you fail to redirect you, get you going in a different direction, get you focusing on something else. Like I said in the beginning, God knows everything. He's omnipresent. So therefore, he knows more about the situation. He knows more about those people. He knows more about that job. I almost took a job one time where they didn't tell me half the stuff I was going to be doing in the interview. They made it sound beautiful. They made it sound like, oh, it was just going to be the best job. Everybody works together. And then later on, by the grace of God, before I took that job, I spoke with somebody from that office, and it was nothing like what they advertised. And had I taken that job, I would have been miserable, and I would have been looking for another job. So he blesses us when things don't work out the way we expect them to. And number 10, the reason the failure is in God's plan, because he has to build our patience. Patience is one of the fruits of the Spirit. The only way you learn patience is to have to wait. Only way you learn patience is to have him knock something down and you have to build it up again. The only way you learn endurance is hanging in there when things don't look good. Hanging in there when what you've tried just keeps falling apart and you decide that I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. The only way he can build that up in you is to allow some things to fail in your life. And each of us can look back on our past and remember a situation that we can say, we're glad God didn't let it work out the way that we wanted. A lot of times we are influenced by our friends. We think we should have what they have. We think that, different social clubs, they got it going on. You don't know what those people deal with privately. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to beat to my own drum, not try to be like anybody, not trying to act like anybody. I don't want to look like anybody, because you don't know what's going on the inside. All you see is the pretty stuff on the outside. And there's a saying that says, it's a joke that man makes plans and God laughs. A lot of times our plans and our thoughts are so low compared to God. God, a lot of times he's like, she doesn't even know the potential that she has. Why is she settling for this? Why is she trying to do that? She's got so much more inside of her. And that's why he allows things to fail, because he wants you to stretch. He wants you to push out that thing in you that he knows he put in you. So a lot of times he allows things to fail because you're thinking too low. And I've been there, and I feel like I'm there sometimes now. I'm thinking too low because God will unction you that you're more than where you are right now. And sometimes you don't know how to get to that next level, but keep that in your heart, because that's what's going to keep you pushing. That's what's going to keep you looking for that next big thing that you can do. If you have that unction in your spirit, that feeling that, I could be doing more than what I'm doing. And God puts that in you because he knows every gift, every blessing, that he's put inside of you. And he wants you to use it all, before you leave this earth. And a lot of times we sit on our gifts. We sit on the things that God has blessed us with. And I almost sat on my gift. I almost sat on not even doing these podcasts because I was afraid of not knowing what to say, not knowing how to say it. I've never been a public speaker, but anything that you do for God, anything that you trust God with, I'm learning this, you guys. Trust me, I ain't got it all together, but I'm learning that if God puts it on your heart, he's got a plan for you to be able to do it. He's got a way for you to be able to do it. You don't have to be like anybody else. You don't have to look like anybody else. You don't have to talk like anybody else. All he wants you to be is your authentic self. And when you do that, and when you acknowledge him, and when you trust him with it, you'll do it, and you won't even realize what you've done until it's over. Because God does not put you in a position to embarrass you. That's not God. That's what people do. People will put you in positions and titles, in front of people, just to embarrass you. God doesn't do that. God moves you at his pace. Sometimes we run ahead of God, but if God put you there, God is going to make a way for you to be a blessing while you're there. And so how do most of us handle it, you guys, as human beings, as our true self? How do we normally handle things when God disrupts our lives, when we think we got it going on, and then all of a sudden God lets this thing come in our life that just knocks us off course? This is the honest truth of how most of us handle it, and I'm guilty myself. Number one, first thing you do is you get disappointed. Because like I said before, you done put all this effort, this time, this energy into something, and then it doesn't work out, or everything was going good, and then all of a sudden something crazy happens. Instead of focusing on what you need to do to fix it, we give up. We get discouraged. We get disappointed. And God is not there to hurt you. He does things to help you. He does things to bless you. But it's all about your perspective. Number two, we get sad. We have a pity party. We want everybody to feel sorry for us. I did all of this, and I don't know why God allowed this to happen to me. You know how we do. As if nothing happens to anybody else. As if we're so special that storms won't come in our life. Number three, we start to blame ourselves. I knew I shouldn't have done this. I knew I shouldn't have tried this. I knew I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. We start blaming ourselves as if we have control over everything. We don't have control over everything. God is in control. Number four, some of us get angry. We do. We get angry. We get mad at God, and we get mad at everybody else when things aren't going the way we want them to go, or if they were going that way and then God puts a detour in our lives. Instead of us praying to God and asking God, okay, God, what are you doing? What are you trying to show me? What did I do wrong? Show me what I did wrong, where I got off track. We tend to get angry. Number five, we tend to get bitter, have nothing good to say. Number six, negativity. We start talking negative about ourselves and everything. Number seven, we lose confidence in ourselves. God doesn't allow the detours in our life to break us down as far as our self-esteem. God says over and over in his word that we are more than conquerors through him. So if he thinks you're a conqueror, he thinks you're a conqueror even when the situation is not working out. That's one thing about God. God doesn't change his mind about you. Whatever he calls you, he's calling you that in all situations. Because one thing about a situation, it's not there to last. A situation is temporary. You're going to move through that situation. So he calls you the thing that you are. He calls you a conqueror. He calls you the head and not the tail. He calls you above and not beneath. He calls you those things because no matter what your situation is, you are still that. You're just going through something right now. But that doesn't mean that you're defeated. That just means that you've got to strategize how to get through this and get to the other side. And number 8, fear. We start getting scared and, I'm not going to try nothing else. I'm not going to do this anymore because the last time it didn't work, this, that, and the other. That's what's wrong with a lot of us in relationships. Even those of us that are single, but even some of you that are married, you took that fear into your marriage, that fear from what happened to you in the past. You took that into your now relationship. And that's why a lot of people don't have the trust and the intimacy that they should have with their partner, because you brought that fear with you instead of staying single and staying out of a relationship until you conquered that thing, until you got over that thing and said, you know what, that was then, this is now. Fear, you have no place in my life. But people take those same fears into one relationship, to the next relationship, to the next. And then you wonder why you end up in this cycle of being unhappy. I was that person. So I understand why I was in cycles of relationships where I was unhappy, because what happened in the last one was still being carried to the next one. That fear, that insecurity, that low self-esteem that I should have dealt with while I was single, I was still in relationships with other people trying to deal with that stuff. And that's really some stuff you need to handle while you're single and be delivered from that stuff before you bring somebody else into your life. So fear is a natural response when we fail. We're scared to try it again. We're scared to do it again. Nobody's going to support me. Everybody's going to talk about me. Maybe so. But you've got to have enough love and enough confidence in yourself to say, you know what, if they talk about me, fine. I'm glad to give them something to talk about at the dinner table. If they support me or if they don't, fine, because God got some people out there that I don't even know that's going to support me when the people I do know won't. And you have to talk to yourself like that, because God doesn't have a shortage of people out there. It's a shortage of how you think about yourself. It's a shortage of what you're willing to expose yourself to. Are you willing to get outside your circle to find some people that really are clapping for you, or some people that really want to see you be better? Or are you going to stay with that familiar group of people that will only let you go so far, and then as soon as you seem like you're doing a little bit too much, then they have a problem with it? So fear is a natural response when God knocks things over. And number 9, we turn away from God because now we don't trust him. Even though we didn't consult him in the beginning before we did that thing, we're quick to say, I don't know why God don't want me to be happy. I don't know why God don't want me to be prosperous. I don't know why God allowed this in my life. You didn't even talk to him before you did it or got into it. But then all of a sudden, because it failed, now it's God's fault. So those are the things we do as humans. God has so much patience with us and so much love for us. And I think we don't truly understand it until we deal with somebody that's just like us. Until you feel what it's like to try to do your best for somebody and have them be ungrateful. Talking about them kids. If you haven't ever been through it, wait for it. Grandkids gonna do it to you. Somebody gonna do it to you. Somebody that you have nothing but love for, that you're trying to provide for, trying to give them the best, do the best for, and then have them boogers be ungrateful. That's who we are. That's how we treat God. So therefore, sometimes when things don't work out, we retreat and we turn away from God. We don't want to talk to nobody, and we don't even want to talk to God because we feel like because it failed, that was God letting us down. A lot of times that was God stepping in and intervening and doing what needed to do, because you didn't have any idea of what you were setting yourself up for or what you were getting yourself into. So let's talk about a mature perspective on how to respond when God turns things over in your life. Number 1, pray for understanding of why the situation failed. Now that takes a mature mindset to not be angry, to not feel sorry for themselves and just say, okay, God, I'm coming to you. I need to understand. I know that you meant this for my good. Please explain to me. Please show me why this wasn't what I needed to do. And when you come to God that way, He's going to open your eyes to some things that you didn't even see. Those things that you looked over and you'd be like, oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh, I thank God He didn't let that happen in my life. Oh, I didn't even see that. Oh, I didn't see that she had an attitude like that. Oh, I thank God. And I've had to say that for myself, just things He's gotten me out of. And I was like, man, how did I not see that when I was dealing with that? Life has a way of putting blinders on you. You see what you want to see. And sometimes you don't see the real deal until you get outside of the situation. And then you realize, you know what? I would have been stuck with that for 10 more years had I stayed in it, had God not intervened, had God not knocked that over. I would have been dealing with that. I would have been still fighting about that all these years. So learn to pray for understanding of why the situation failed. Number 2, a mature person understands that you cry your tears, but you got to keep going. Life goes on. Things are going to hurt you. They're going to disappoint you. They're going to make you mad. Cry your tears. The worst time to mess with me is when I'm crying when I'm mad, because you might get what you get. So therefore, learn to cry your tears. That doesn't make you weak. That just makes you human. You need to get that stuff out so that you can get your mind right, so you can keep going, because life goes on no matter what happens to you. Life goes on. Number 3, focus on what you have left versus spending all your time focusing on what you lost. A lot of times we don't even appreciate what we have, but we can cry about something that we wanted that we didn't get. But what's been for you, what's been here for you, what's been stable for you, is still there. And sometimes we're so focused on what we lost, we overlook the fact that we're already blessed. I heard it, saw on a Facebook post the other day, and it was one of my friends, and she had posted, y'all get up, we ain't rich yet, blah, 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 blah. And I posted back, I said, yes, sis, we are rich. It's all about your perspective. You're rich if you woke up this morning to even read that post. Baby, you're rich. So many people are so restricted. So many people can't get out of bed. So many people wish they could do the simple things that we take for granted every day. We are rich and have our own freedom and not having somebody persecuting us. We are rich. Number 4, we must understand that God loves us and wants only what's best for us, and that God knows everything. He knows the end from the beginning. And when you've got a mature mindset, yeah, you're going to cry when it didn't work, but you're also going to resolve in your mind and say, you know what? If it didn't work, then that must mean something was in it that God didn't want me to be involved in. Even though I wanted it that bad, if God took it away or allowed it to go, then I have to trust God and understand that if it was meant for me, it would still be here. And that's what I had to learn about friends and learn about relationships, you guys. And it keeps me from being disappointed when a lot of things don't work out when it comes to people. Because God has a way of putting people in your life. Some of them is just for a season, just to help you in a certain time in your life. And then they move on, they outgrow you, or you outgrow them, you move on. And then there are those that are there for a reason. I've had people be in my life, to kind of guide me, when I wanted to get off track, when I wanted to get into trouble and do things. God had some people in my life, even though I don't deal with them on the same level now, but they were there when I needed them to be. God is strategic about his children. So sometimes people are there in your life for a specific reason. And that's why you should never be upset when people move on, because you don't know what their purpose was in your life. Hey, Pam. Hey, Juanita. You don't know what their purpose was, but God does. That's why you don't never part with people with hard feelings. Even in romantic relationships, you guys, if the relationship didn't work, don't hate that person. Don't talk bad about that person. Don't tell everybody that person's no good. Just understand that y'all weren't meant to be together. Allow people to move on And be thankful that you're not stuck in a bad relationship any longer than you had to be. And so we have to learn to just understand that God loves us so much, He takes things out of our life. He knocks things over. Number 5, with a mature mindset, you understand that whatever you're going through, it's just temporary. Nothing lasts forever. Everything is temporary. So while you're going through a bad patch right now, just know that this too shall pass. This is not always going to be how it's going to be. God is preparing something better for you. But sometimes you got to go through a few things to get to it. And when your mind is mature and when you've had some time with God and you're spiritually maturing, you'll understand to not give up on life just because you're in a bad patch right now. You know how to hold on and wait till you can get through and get to the other side. And you understand that God is going to work it out for your good. Number 6, a mature mind. When you fail, you draw strength from your friends and your support system and even your spouse. If you can't get support from your family, your friends, and your spouse, something's wrong. And especially if it's your spouse. If that's not the person you can go to when you're hurting, if that's not the person you can go to when you're disappointed, if that's not the person you can go to and say, hey, will you pray with me? This really devastated me and I'm not feeling like myself. I'm feeling really down. I'm feeling like just not even trying anymore. That's what that help meet is for. They're supposed to be there not just for the money to make your life easier, but they're also supposed to be there in those times for those things that money can't buy. That's when you know you got the right one. When they can sense that something's wrong with you and they can be there for you and be a support for you and not make you feel sad or feel silly, for something affecting you or not put you down. For not being able to get past something or not put you down because what you were working on, didn't work out. That's not who God has for you if you can't go to them when times get rough. Y'all are in this thing together. And then family needs to be better. We all have family members that know nothing about love and real love and support for one another. That's why prayer for the family is so important. A lot of people say, when the big mamas, kind of got old, and people stopped wanting to be called big mama, things changed. The family dynamic changed because all the grandmothers didn't want to be made to feel old. And Big Mama was not just the name you gave your grandmother. Big Mama was the overseer. She was the prayer warrior. Big Mama was the one that could get you straight, that you wouldn't say nothing to. When you would cuss out everybody else, when Big Mama spoke, Big Mama was that person that had that weight of glory on her, that came from being a praying woman, from being the matriarch in the family. And unfortunately, that has died because the newer generations didn't understand how important the big mamas in life were. And that's why families are so divided and families are so jealous of one another. There's nobody trying to be the peacemaker. See, Big Mama was the peacemaker. She didn't care how old you were. You were coming together. She said, come to her house. You came. We're going to get this stuff straight today. But nobody's willing to do that because they don't see the value in a family sticking together and loving one another and supporting one another. And that's really sad. Number 7, a mature mindset. When God knocks your table over, you understand that, maybe that wasn't for me. Maybe I need to do something different. God, show me what you really want me to be doing. What else can I do? Because obviously that was not for me. I appreciate the time I was able to do that, but my time is up with that. And you understand timing when you become mature in God. You learn that, just because I'm doing this right now doesn't mean this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. You have to go from season to season. And God is the only one that knows what's going on in each season. He got that way ahead of you. You can't see it, but He can see it. So understand that sometimes God allows disappointment so that you will think again, that you'll have desire again, that you'll get excited again. And so you'll try something new, try something different. Number 8, a mature mindset appreciates God's protection. Simply because you know God enough. You spend enough time with God to know that He's a good God. That He said in His Word, everything that He does is good. So therefore, if He allowed it to fail, if He turned it over, if He disrupted it, if He broke up that relationship, He did it for your good. And you learn to trust Him because you've grown to know Him. And you've seen what He's done in your life. And you've seen how He protected you. And you've seen how He's blessed you. He's not two-faced like some people are. He's not going to do good for you and then turn around and do you dirty. That's what humans do. But God doesn't do that. He's always on your side. And so you appreciate His protection, even if you got to cry some tears, even if your heart is broken, even if people have to talk about you. I thought about it. It took me a while, after I got divorced this last time, and I was like, you know what, I'm just sick of people, because everybody, just are there for you in the good times, and then when it's bad times, everybody's got an opinion on what happened, but nobody's really there to be a support to you, without trying to get in your business. And I said, you know what, God, I said, anything that you remove from my life, I said, right now, this is unbearable to some point, because when you really want something to work out and you really put everything into it and you really want to see what God sees and what it could be, because you can see the potential, and it's just such a disappointment to you, it's easy to get down and get depressed and think, you know what, God, nothing good is ever going to happen for me. And that's what the enemy was trying to tell me. You should never worry about getting married again. You just need to stay single. You just need, the enemy was all in my ear. But you know what? I agree with a portion of that. Nothing good was going to happen to me until I changed my mindset. So you're right about that. So nothing good was going to happen until I got healed from everything that had already happened. Because when you're broken, you attract broke people. So therefore, yeah, you were right on that. Nothing good was going to happen. You weren't going to have a decent relationship because you were broke and you've been dealing with broke people, and that's all you know. So until you learn something different, until you decide you want to be different, until you decide to go to God and allow Him to heal you, yeah, you were limited. But see, I took the enemy's words and I said, you know what, God, I recognize that. That's me. That's what I've been doing, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to keep dealing with broke people. And I don't want to deal with anybody until you heal me. Not because I'm lonely, not because I want somebody. No, I want to come into my next relationship healed from all of that stuff. Hey, William, all of that stuff that happened to me in my past. Don't allow me to get into the relationship that's going to be the relationship of my life until all of that is healed. And I ask God to help me with that, to help me be committed to that, to not allow people in and out of my life, not to get tempted, by the loneliness, to just jump into another relationship and then end up dealing with the same stuff and have the enemy laughing at me saying, I told you, here you are again. You're going through that same stuff again. I had to make up my mind. And when I made up my mind that I deserve better than that, I deserve better than what I've already had, it requires sacrifice, you guys. And God will help you sacrifice, especially if He's healing you and you want it bad enough. And especially if you want something better than what you had, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you because that other stuff was free. That stuff that wasn't no good for you, it's always free. It's like the food that's bad for you. It's always cheap. But what's good for you is always going to cost you something. And what it costs you is your integrity. It costs you some patience. It costs you some endurance, and it's costing you to learn how to trust in God, and it's worth it. So that's why we learn to appreciate God's protection as we mature and understand that God is truly for us. And then you learn what real love is. You know, a lot of times we only know what love is by what has happened in our past, what we've seen and what we've experienced. But most of us don't even have a clue of what real love is, because we're looking at the world for love. And God keeps being the example, the perfect example of what real love is. And a lot of times we settle for the world's version, and we find out that it's counterfeit. And God keeps trying to show us the real thing. And that's why you have to appreciate his protection, because he doesn't want you to settle for the counterfeit, because he knows that eventually it's going to hurt you and it's going to damage you, and then you're going to have to be healed again. And then oftentimes God turns things over and knocks things down because we set the bar too low. Like I said before, we settle for what's easiest. And God doesn't want that for us. God wants us to have his best, but you've got to want it. He's not going to twist your arm. He's not going to make you do anything. You have to see yourself how God sees you, as precious, as fearfully and wonderfully made. And when you see yourself like that, you won't settle for trash. Trash sometimes looks real good, but you know trash when you see it. You know trash by their conversation. You know trash by what they want you to do all the time. You know what trash is. We all do. But sometimes we try to pretend like, oh, well, it's not as bad. But we know when something is not truly for us, but sometimes we let our own desires take over. But God doesn't want you to set the bar too low, and he doesn't want you to settle just because it's easy. And there are 4 truths about God when it comes to us. Number 1, God is for you. God is for you, and he's for your good. And you have to know that he has your best interest at heart. Just like a good father. A good father. We all know what it's like to have a father, but everybody did not have a good father. A good father will do what he needs to do for you even when you don't like it. That's a good father. Number 2, understand that you are not God. God is fighting battles for us, you guys, on realms that we'll never understand. He's blocking things that you haven't even encountered yet. He's shutting things down that are meant to destroy you. He's doing these things while you're sleeping. He's doing these things while you're walking every day. Simply because you're his child. He's always trying to protect you. He's always trying to keep the enemy at bay and keep him off of you and keep him from wrecking your life. Number 3, God is sovereign. Nothing is outside of his control. Nothing. Even when we don't like what's going on, just know God is in control. That's the truth about God. He's in control of everything. We don't understand all the time why he allows things to happen like they do, but one thing you can bet on is he's in control of it all. Number 4, God is good. And we have to trust that, because everything God did when he was creating, he said, this is the first day and it was good. This is good. He made the water. He made the sun, the moon, all of that. He said it was good because he can't make anything but good. So understanding that and just knowing that because he is the creator, everything he does is good. Men have warped things and turned things into something bad, but God's intention, even for man, was for good. And then our final thought is nothing in our life just happens. God is always watching and trying to protect us. Just like the good father that he is, sometimes it's necessary for him to turn over the tables in our lives to get us back in line. And that's the purpose of God's love, to keep us in line, to keep us in the line of favor, to keep us in the line of blessing, keep us in the line of his love. And that's true love. Thank you guys for watching. I enjoyed you guys. Please enjoy the rest of your week. Have an amazing weekend. Me and a couple of friends, well, actually 3 girlfriends, we're going to do what's called a waiting to exhale weekend. That's something I came up with, and we're just going to let it all out. You know, sometimes you just need those friends, that safe place that you can go and just talk about whatever you want without judgment, without fear, without condemnation. And that's what we're going to do this weekend. I'll let you guys know next week how that turned out, which I'm excited because I think it's going to be amazing. But continue to work on yourselves. That's all you can do. We can't worry about what other people do. All you can do is try to be the best version of you can possibly be. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Y'all stay blessed. Bye.